Hi, this is Casper from Accrease. I'm seeing a lot of questions on Experience League in regards to how to implement recommendation, what's the minimum required, and how to actually validate that it's working once implemented. So I thought I'd just do a quick video or a screen recording showing you how to implement it, how to validate it, and we'll be using our own site, accrease.com, as the demo here. We have a bunch of articles, and I'd like to recommend these on the homepage. So in order to do that, the first step is to make sure that each article has a unique ID. Regardless whether you are promoting videos or FAQs or article or blog post or products, it's important that each of those items, individual items, has a unique ID. Recommendation is using that unique ID to do all the behavioral data that it's collecting so that it can do the criteria like people who viewed this also viewed that. In our case, we're using WordPress, and I know that WordPress is by default generating a unique ID for each page. So let's just have a quick look at that. I go inspect, and you can see I have a data post ID. So I'm going to be picking up this ID and use it as my unique ID for recommendation. It needs to be populated into the parameter called entity.id. So let's just jump into our tag manager and have a look at how that's done. We're using Adobe Tags, and I created a new data element. I've called it Rex Post ID, and it's just really simple. It's just JavaScript that picks up that data post ID on the page. So every time I navigate to a different article, it's going to be picking up that new ID for that specific article. I also have a page title data element, and I'll get to that in just a second. Once I have my relevant data elements, I need to be sending them to Target, and I do that through a rule. So I have a rule here that's run, a target rule that's run on the path of articles. That's where all our articles are based under. And we'll go to the add params to all requests. And you can see I've added entity.id. And in that, I've selected my data element that's picking up that unique ID. That's the minimum you need. As mentioned, entity ID is used for the behavioral data and in order to actually do the criteria. When I want to be showing my recommendations on the homepage, it's then showing a design, and in order to correctly populate that design, I might want to be showing, the article name. When I click on it, I want to ensure that it actually goes to the article page. If I was an e-commerce site, I wanted to show price maybe, and things like that. In order to do that, I need other entity parameters populated. So in my case, I've listed entity.name, which has the title of the article. I've also listed entity.page URL, which is the full URL. And that's in order to actually, when I click on it, that I'm taken to that article page. There's a bunch of others you can use. If I wanted my design to show a thumbnail URL, I needed entity.thumbnail URL to actually, I need a data element to populate that so I can, in my design, give the path for that thumbnail image to show in my design. I hope that makes sense. I would recommend that most of the entity parameters are populated on the page itself, just like I'm doing right here. If there's some that's not available or you need something to be updated more frequently, you can do that through a feed inside the recommendations UI. I'm not going to go into details on that, but that would be a CSV file that Target go and crawls, and it would then populate all those metadata required with the necessary data. It's going to tie that to the entity ID. So it's critical that you have entity ID implemented on the page so that Target knows when I'm on this page, I can collect behavior in regards to people who viewed this, also viewed that, etc. That's the implementation. I have my data elements. I got my rules firing. So let's just have a quick look at that. I'm going to go to network, refresh the page, click on it. We can see execute, page load, parameters. I got my entity ID, I got entity name, and the page URL. If I navigate to a different article. See if I can do that in that small window. You'll see there's a new request, execute page load parameters, different ID, obviously a different name and a different page URL because now it's for this specific article. That's the implementation. Simple implementation in this case. Typically, I would see a lot of other entity parameters listed in this page because I would recommend that you pass them on the page itself, and you can. It's not that I'm recommending against the feed, but the feed would be kind of the backup for anything that you couldn't collect and pass on the page here. Next step is to create the activity. So I'm going to go to Target, create activity, recommendation, create. And I'd like to show it just above this headline. So I'm going to click recommendation, mouse over and do here, insert before. Select recommendation. So these are basically the criteria. So it's going to take a while to load. The tricky thing about recommendation is that even though we have the implementation in place, if I want to test it immediately, that's going to be slightly difficult because Target needs a lot of behavioral data collected in order to actually do most of the criteria, like people who viewed this also viewed that. If it's in my case where I just implemented it, there's not going to be a lot of behavioral data to do people who viewed this also viewed that. So in order to actually validate that it's working, I would recommend that you use a user-based or popularity-based criteria. And today we're going to be using the recently, and you can see there's a bunch of recently viewed. Doesn't matter which one you pick. This is just from Adobe perspective to show that this isn't just, for e-commerce sites. You can also do it for videos, for slideshows, for items, content, articles, products, etc. It's just a name. The logic behind each of these is exactly the same. So just for the name here, I'm going to go with recently viewed articles, click next. And then it's design. I haven't prepared a specific design for this demo, so I'm just going to be using one of the ones provided by Adobe here out of the box. So I'm going to do 4x1. Hit next. Don't need to do anything here. Hit save. I'll just quickly do page delivery. Sometimes it likes to act up here, so I'll just do if URL contains Accrease, save. Do a fancy name. As a demo of recommendation. Save that, hit next. One important step just from a demo perspective, I want to remove the no recommendation, meaning the control, and just reduce that to 0%. I don't want to risk when I show you it that I end up in my control and nothing is working. So that's why I'm reducing it to 0. Hit next. I'm not going to do anything fancy in here. I'm just going to set this up so we can hit the save button, revenue, click on recommendation, save and close. That should be it. I'm gonna click activate. So we've implemented entity parameters through data elements and a rule. We created an activity and it's currently set to do recently view, which is a user-based criteria, meaning it's my specific behavior that's driving what's being shown in my recommendation. So let's go to the site. We've already visited 2 articles. We'll close this one. So we'll go to the home page. And we can see that it actually has some more behavior collected from before I started the recording. You can see that there's an image not working. That's because the design that I'm using is expecting that there's a thumbnail, but I haven't populated the entity.thumbnail URL, so there's nothing to show. The same goes for entity.message, entity.value, but we do see that there's the friendly name or the article name. And if I click on this one, I'm taken to that specific article. And the same goes for the other one here. Takes me to different articles. That's because we populated entity page URL, and we see the name because we populated entity.name. Currently showing 4, so I might not even change anything if I select a new article. Let's see, and it might actually take a while for it to show. Just give it a few minutes. or not minutes, seconds maybe. Here we go. Building engagement scoring model. That's the most recent article that I just viewed. It took about 20, 30 seconds for it to show. That's basically it. So I can see it's working. Again, some of these are not showing correctly because I haven't populated those entity parameters. I could do that through the feed if I wanted to. So if I have, a CSV file with a thumbnail URL, I could be populating them correctly by using a feed, a CSV file, crawling that, and then making sure that the entity IDs collected is tied up or matching up the thumbnail URLs from that feed. But that's basically it. I'm hoping this was helpful. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments for the video or create a thread on Experience League, and I'll keep an eye and do my best to answer any questions you may have.